Coming up tonight, the Harmony enjoys her final day alone. We take a look at the sea views, and we get to talk to the captain. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 12 of the cruise view from onboard the Harmony of the Seas, the largest ship in the world. As of course I've been saying all along, she's making her big grand entrance into the US for the very first time. And today was Thursday, November 3rd, 2016, so just 2 days away from arriving in the US officially, and just 1 day away from the big premiere. So our noontime location today, we are getting very close to the US at this point. We are pretty much down in the Bahamas. Currently at 2 a.m. You can actually see some of the islands outside of the ship right now as we sail by. You can just see some of the lights right on the horizon there. But our noontime location had us at 26 degrees and 57 minutes north by 73 degrees and 21 minutes west. The closest land at that time was San Salvador, roughly 130 miles away. At this point, we've now traveled 3,728 miles since Malaga and have just 370 more miles to Fort Lauderdale. Weather for today, we had sunrise this morning at 8:01 a.m. and tonight we had a sunset at 7:08 p.m. Just like the past couple days, we had some slight cloud cover. It was partly cloudy conditions according to the forecast, but overall it felt very hot, warm, and sunny. For the most part, there were not too many clouds, and it was a very, very hot day, especially if you were sitting out in that aqua theater where there was no wind at all. It was just a very warm day today. But even with that heat and a high of 80 degrees, we did have a passing shower about, I think it was maybe like 2 o'clock. And that you could see right out in front of the ship. You could see the downpour on the horizon, and of course the captain maneuvered us around it. We didn't get any of the actual rain, but we did get a couple drops of drizzle as we went right around that storm. So we didn't really have any disruption due to the weather, but we did see it off the side of the ship and know it was out there. So our compass summary for today, it was another very busy day. And it started once again at 9:30 in the morning for me with another one of the David Kirkpatrick lectures. This is his last one, titled Why Movies Matter. And this one featured a lot more clips than his previous ones. It was very heavy on analyzing some of the different characters and movies that are out there, where the other ones dove a little more specifically into a particular movie. This was a very broad one, covering a whole lot of different areas. And then at noon today, out in the Aqua Theater, as I mentioned, where it was very hot today, we had Meet the Stars featuring several members of the cast for Studio B, the Royal Theater, as well as the Aqua Theater itself, doing a little Q&A very similar to the Captain's Corner. We've seen this on a couple different cruises before. On Quantum, of course, it was called the 270 Technology Tour, but it was pretty much the same thing. And this is basically the Captain's Corner for the entertainers on board the ship, going through and answering some questions and talking about what they do on board and a little bit about themselves. And of course, many of those people that were featured in that were also people that I've interviewed throughout the series. So in addition to watching those interviews, you can go and check out this little Meet the Stars event to see a little more information about them that may not have been covered in the interviews. And then following that, at 1:30 today, we had one of the big events for any cruise, one of the traditions, which was the belly flop competition. It was originally scheduled for the Aqua Theater, but of course the Aqua Theater has had many delays and issues. Hideaway Heist was canceled the past several days, so they moved it up to the main pool up on the pool deck in order to give the Aqua Theater team as much time as possible in the theater itself to do their work and get things ready. So that took place at 1:30, and it was hosted by Abe himself up there in the pool, getting a little bit wet as the men did their jump. So it was a smaller crowd than usual. kind of surprising with a ship of 5,000 plus people that I think we only had about 4 contestants that actually showed up to participate. But we do have high crown and anchor numbers, and I'm sure many of them have participated in the past or simply grown used to seeing this event and don't really come out to it anymore. But it still did have a decent crowd watching, and it wasn't overly crowded. You could still find a place to watch, but there was a nice sized crowd there to see it. And then following that, you pretty much had to go directly there. At 3:30, they did have the Hideaway Heist finally. It was originally scheduled for 3 and 5 o'clock today. During the Meet the Stars event, Abe explained a little bit about what was going on. Basically, one of the pipes in the Aqua Theater itself actually burst and had to be replaced. So they needed to drain the pool, repair those parts, but we had, of course, those 9 straight days at sea, which meant no protocols to pick up replacement parts or to get repairs done. Instead, they kind of had to do everything makeshift right here on the ship to get it all back up and running. So that was what caused the delays in Hideaway Heist all the past 3 days, I believe it's been canceled for. And to make up for that, they did delay it slightly today even. It was scheduled for 3 and 5, as I mentioned, but instead they ran it at 3:30. 5 o'clock, and then added a third showing at 6:30. And those are the only 3 showings they're doing. It was originally supposed to be 2 different days at 3 and 5 o'clock on each of those days, but instead, because of the delays, they're only running it today, those 3 times. So for that very first showing, there was a massive crowd, probably the largest crowd I've seen for any event on board this ship so far, bigger than any of the parties that have happened, bigger than even any of the other shows in terms of just people trying to get in. By probably 2:15, it was standing room only, and in the back of the theater, that standing room was basically filled up by about 2:30. You were several people deep, so it was almost impossible to see that first show. It was completely filled, every free space was taken up, and that was for a 3:30 show, so you had to be there over an hour early just to kind of get a glimpse through people at what the show was. So it was a very popular first showing of it because everyone has waited so long, and the other 2 really weren't the best time shows if you had dinner or anything to go to, and especially because it was formal night tonight, so you really had a difficult time getting to either 5 or 6:30 if you had a 6 o'clock dinner. But for those that did come to that first show, it was a very good show, and part of the reason it may have been extra full leading up to the actual show was that they were running some rehearsals and tech stuff before the show began, so everyone that was waiting for the show got a little preview of it with some diving and gymnastics, as well as a little bit of aerial routines throughout theater while everyone waited for the actual show to start. And the show itself was another one of the great shows on board the ship. They really haven't had any bad ones, and part of the reason is this is the secondary show. You would expect it to be very simplistic, but just like iSkate, you went in expecting a simpler show, shorter show, but it still was up to that same caliber quality that you would expect of a primary show on a ship. Really, this show, with all the different stuff they had going on, could probably have been a primary show on either the Oasis or the Allure if they just extended it with a couple extra scenes to get it to the proper length. So it was a very high quality show, and it was a very different show than the Fine Line. The Fine Line was very artistic. You had a lot of stuff going on, you had different types of acts happening all at the same time, and you really didn't know where to look. There was just so much going on, it was just high energy in your face. This was a little more of a play. There was a story to it, there was a little more slowness to it, so you could pay attention to individual elements and really appreciate the different aspects of the show rather than jumping all over the place like the Fine Line did. But it was still a great show. It was slower, but that doesn't mean worse. It just means that you can pay a little more attention, and it also gives them a little more time to add a little extra finesse to the things they do. There are, of course, a couple trick dives involved in it, as is often the case with the secondary Aqua Theater shows. So as I mentioned, that 3:30 show was completely filled to capacity. I also went to the 5 o'clock show, and that one was surprisingly empty. It was still full, but there were actually a couple seats left when the show started, and standing room even had some areas. So it was certainly not the madhouse that we saw with the very first showing for that second one. So everyone really did just want that first showing. I have no idea what the third one looked like in terms of crowds, but it was probably similar to the second or less. I doubt it was anywhere near as big as that first one. So that led right into my dinner for today at 6 o'clock. And as I mentioned, it was formal night. So there were, of course, the photos and all the usual stuff around the ship, as well as the formal dinner. And for tonight's menu, it was a very seafood-focused menu. Of course, being a formal night, the lobster and those kinds of dishes were on the menu. For me, I don't eat seafood. So I got, for my starter, the tomato bisque soup. And for my entree, I got a beef tenderloin. And then for dessert, I got the baked Alaska. And all three were delicious. The tomato bisque soup was absolutely delicious. I hope they keep that on the menu and bring it back on some other sailings, because it was a great one. It was a simple one. You expect tomato bisque to basically just be a fancy tomato soup, but they really kind of did a nice job with the croutons and the cheese on it and some of the other stuff to really dress it up and make it seem a little bit more than just a fancy tomato soup, even though that really is all it is at the core. So that was a delicious one, and the beef tenderloin was perfectly done. So it was just an all-around great meal from a menu that really wasn't anything that I would be interested in, since it was the seafood menu of this sailing, but it was still a great meal with what I did get off it. And then immediately following dinner, as I've done many times on a sailing, and I started the sailing by saying I'm not going to mention every show that's on the compass, only mention them when I actually go to them, and so far I've gotten almost every time a show has happened, and that was the case again at 7:45. I once again went to iSkate the third time. I skipped the 5:15, of course, because it conflicted with Hideaway Heist, which I had only been to once previously, so that kind of had priority. But I did get to iSkate a third time, and for some reason those shows just do not seem to get old, in my opinion. Every time you watch, you can just notice a little bit more. There's so many things going on, and anytime you've got athletes performing like you have in the Aqua Theater or Studio B, it's always got a slightly different feel to it. There's different emotions and energy in the room, and this one, there were a lot less people, so it was slightly different. The energy levels felt a little bit different than we've seen in the other ones, because it was a maybe half to two-third full room, so it was a very different energy level, but it was still very exciting and fun show, as it has been all the other times I've seen it. And that, unfortunately, was the end of the ice skating for me. At least that was the last ice skating show, I believe, that's listed in the compasses, so I won't get to see any more of those. As well as the Aqua Theater Hideaway Heist is the last of their scheduled shows. They're supposed to have a technical run-through of the fine line tomorrow. I'm not sure what time that will be, but it'll be open to the public and listed, unlike the normal technical previews, just to give a little something extra for the fact that Hideaway Heist was delayed so long and they could only do 3 showings in a single day, which not everybody could attend. So that's kind of a consolation prize they're giving. I'm sure most people would have preferred if they had done Hideaway Heist on another day, just so it could fit their schedules or it wasn't formal night. But there's only so much you can do with so many things going on this ship, and it was nothing they could really control with the fact that it was a pipe that burst, and they did everything they possibly could to fix it, because they, of course, could have just let it go and waited till it got to Fort Lauderdale to make the repairs with official parts that they could get shipped in. But they worked hard on board to get those kind of MacGyver repairs done and get that Hideaway Heist show up and running today for us. So then, in addition to those Royal Caribbean shows, there was also a headliner tonight. We had the Beatles celebration. If you watch the Quantum, you know we had the Beatles on there as well. Not a big fan of the Beatles act, so I personally did not really get into it too much. Seemed like a lot of other people got into it, but overall, compared to some of the other Beatles acts we saw, such as the one on the Quantum of the Seas, I think this one was not quite at that same level. I think the others were a little bit better, and I'm sure if I liked the Beatles, I would have enjoyed it much more than I had. but overall it just is not my style, as is often the case with shows. Not every show can meet every person's style, and you kind of need that in order to ensure there's something for everybody on board this ship, especially when you've got so many people on board a ship like this one. So that was 8:45 tonight, and that basically ended my night on board the Harmony. So from there, the only thing left is, once again at 3 a.m. tonight, we're going to turn those clocks back one more time, and this time I believe we'll end up back on East Coast time. So that will be all set tomorrow, when we'll be right off the coast of Fort Lauderdale and preparing for our arrival the next day. So moving on from our compass then, our venue tours. Tomorrow, as I mentioned before, is a huge day with the three sisters meeting up for the very first time, and to kind of go along with that, I've got the sea views for today. The Harmony of the Seas may not offer the most or best ocean views, but she does still offer some places to watch the seas go by. On Deck 5, she features the longest jogging track at sea, measuring nearly half a mile as it makes a complete circle around the entire ship. Much of its view is blocked by lifeboats along the sides of the ship, but the guest favorite aft wake view remains. And a new addition not found on her sisters is a large glassed-in area at the forward end of each side, offering a slightly protected area to watch the ocean from. A little higher up, the area behind the Aqua Theater is no longer open to the public, and the secret balconies have all been removed in favor of more Aqua Theater suites. But the Deck 7 balconies still remain and are often a quiet, deserted space, even during shows. The top decks, with the large pool and sports zones, feature expansive sea views in all directions from high above the ocean. And unlike the Quantum class, the railings have not been raised, so you can still get a clear view in nearly any direction, including the large and often overlooked aft deck in the sports zone that has lost some space to the ultimate abyss, but still offers great aft views. For those wanting to look forward, the redesigned solarium has removed the wide open forward deck above the bridge, but the solarium still offers views, and the bridge wings remain. As a bonus, the portside bridge features an extra extension known as the King of the World. This allows guests to stand on a glass platform extending beyond the limits of the bridge wing below to give the feeling of flying through the air. So while the Harmony of the Seas may be a large ship and have a lot of things going on inside, if you really want to see the ocean, there are still several places you can go to catch a glimpse of it and watch the sea go by. And so, as you can probably tell, the Harmony of the Seas really kind of lacks when it comes to sea views. There's plenty of areas to look out on the ocean, but if you just want to kind of look out and see what's going on, there are very few areas that have a nice view. All along the top deck, there are railings that obviously look out on the ocean, but there's chairs all along and they're often full. You really only kind of have the two wings above the bridge, which are very small for the number of people on board this ship. So it's often hard to try and get a nice spot out there when there's something going on, such as an arrival or departure. But you do still have all that top deck space, and also what many people forget and wasn't included in there is back on that sports deck. You have the back part of the ship that you can look out. It's a little bit smaller than on Oasis and Allure because the Abyss does take part of that room up, but it is still back there that you can go and check out the views from the aft of the ship as well as the front. So then, with all those sea views, the person who is in charge of it and was responsible for steering us around that range today, of course, was Captain Gus, and he is the one that I got to sit down with and interview today.
Welcome! Well, my name is Gus Andersson and I am your captain, whether you like it or not.
So today I've got Captain Gus here with me. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
So, what led you to a life at sea?
Well, I grew up in a small fishing village on the west coast of Sweden, and my dad was at sea, and pretty much everybody around in the village where I grew up got their livelihood out of the ocean. So it came pretty natural. I was quite young the first times that I obviously went out with my mom and dad and the family on our own boats. And then, of course, as I became a little older, I was driving bigger and different kinds of boats. And then when I was 16, I saw an article in the Swedish Shipping Gazette about a ship that was called Sovereign of the Seas. And she was being delivered very shortly after the article was being published. And I thought, you know what, maybe I should follow my dad's footstep and give up on my planned, at that stage, non-existing career of becoming a professional hockey player. So I went to sea when I was 17, and then of course working in a lot of different ships, cargo ships, small, big. And then I went through nautical college, and I graduated in 1997 with an unlimited watchkeeping officer license.
So what made you transition over to the cruise industry?
Well, I have been around different ships, and one morning I found myself in San Juan, and I was looking across the port, and I saw the white painted beautiful ships. There was Explorer, it was the Enchantment of the Seas, and there were, you know, a few Royal Caribbean ships, and I thought that I would try that again, and another type of experience, of course, being on the cruise ships. And then I resigned from the company that I was working for and started to work with Royal, and that's a little bit over 15 years ago now.
Yeah. So you're recently on the latest class of ships with the Anthem. So how did that ship and the new class compare to the Harmony?
Well, it's a very different class. It's more of an all-weather entertainment ship, the Quantum class, with a lot of new technology compared to any class that we have had before. And then Harmony came out, and we merged the technology that we had on the Quantum and Anthem, and then brought that into the footprint and the real estate that we have on the Oasis and the Allure. So the Harmony is a combination of the best of the best with the two different classes of ships.
And then with the Harmony of the Seas, it's been about 7 years since the Oasis and the Allure first set sail. We've obviously had the Quantum class in between. What kind of new technologies and changes have happened to the Harmony to affect your job and the way you run the ship?
Well, basically, all technology is new. 7 years ago, we had a company delivering A. A does not exist anymore, but B exists, and there's a lot of new technology. Just look at a car that is 7 or 8 years old, how much that has been developed into how a car is now, or even look at the cell phone industry. You know, the arguably most popular cell phone in the world right now, 10 years ago it didn't exist. It came out in 2007, the first one. So, of course, there is a lot of differences between a cell phone and a cruise ship, but the technology in itself has taken tremendous steps. So we have new bridge equipment, we have new engines, and we have new HVAC components. All the lights are now LED, on not all, but most of them are. And there's just so much more technology behind the scenes here than what we had on the Oasis and the Allure. And that also drives into that we have a 20% more energy efficient on the Harmony than what we are on the Allure.
And then on the Oasis and the Allure, when they first came out, they had the first retractable funnels. Since then, they've had to make them static so they couldn't move because of the soot issues. The Quantum class introduced a new version that was functional that has now been carried over to the Harmony. Has that affected any way what you do during the normal sailings?
No, not at all. We take them out when we test them. At this stage, we have no plans to go underneath a bridge where we need to take them down, but we obviously can take them down. And there's no, not that I'm aware of, that we're going to go under a bridge that we would need to take them down.
With those retractable funnels, is it now possible for the Harmony to make it to New York?
I don't have the exact height of the Verrazano Bridge, but we're 65 meters high with the funnels down.
And then typical sailing involves a strict schedule of getting from one port to another. We're currently on a transatlantic, so you've got about 9 days to cross the entire ocean. So how does that change the way that you approach this sailing?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we have enough stores with fuel and with food and with all kinds of different provisions that we're using. That obviously is the biggest. Then the other is we need to make sure that people are entertained because they have nowhere to go except to be on the ship for 9 days. And we have put in a lot of extra entertainment, a lot of different activities that we typically would not just have time to do on a typical 7-day cruise around the Caribbean.
So on a normal day at sea like today, what is your duties usually involve?
Well, the first thing in the morning I do is to go to the bridge and see how the weather is, and talk to the officer of the watch, how was the night, anything happened, and then a couple of meetings, have some admin work. Today I have spent a bit of time with some of the top tier repeaters, the loyal to Royal cruisers. In the afternoon I've had another couple of meetings. Now it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and once we're done here I'm going to go and get ready. In a couple of hours I will have a photo shoot with a guest that would like to come and take a photo with me. And then the last thing I do before I close the door at night is to again go to the bridge, check the weather and see what's going on, what do we have ahead of us, and where are we when it comes to speed, etc., etc.
And then with the Oasis class, we got a lot of motion-sensitive entertainment venues like the Aqua Theater and Studio B. Do you have to take that in consideration or coordinate anything with those venues while the shows go on?
Well, we obviously we have to do somehow, but there are always the movement of the ship out in the Atlantic is always very present, and we have different shows, different style of shows that we go into depending on how much movement we have. So, in order for it to be effective, you need to have a plan B and plan C and plan D for entertainment, and hopefully none of the guests would notice.
Yeah. And then you're one of 2 captains on the ship. You're also here with Captain Johnny, who will be taking over in about 2 weeks. Do you have any kind of transition plans or anything that goes on when you two swap out roles?
Normally we meet on the day that we take over, and then we have a few hours together, but we are always in contact with each other when we are on vacation. We talk a couple of times a month, send some emails with important updates. So we're pretty much synced even before the relieving captain comes on board, in order to minimize the time that we are on the ship together.
And then the last day of this sailing is going to be one of the most historic days for the company, when all 3 Oasis-class ships meet for the first time.
Yes.
Do you have any kind of special plans on what you'll say the first time they're all together over the radio?
What I say to the other ships, or what I say over the PA? Well, I have a couple of different things that we're planning, but stay tuned.
All right. Thank you for joining me. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to people?
If you haven't tried an Oasis class, the Harmony of the Seas is a fantastic place to start. We have entertainment for every generation. We have entertainment for the young kids, for the middle age, for the older. We have fantastic restaurants from Asian cuisine to Western style. We have Mexican. We have all kinds of things that's going on for everyone. So try out a cruise on Harmony of the Seas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that was another fun little interview there with Captain Gus, and of course tomorrow is the day the three sisters meet. Probably the most historic day in the history of Royal Caribbean, and really personally I can't think back to another time when the three largest cruise ships in the world ever met up before. So this is possibly the biggest moment in cruise history, really, because you're going to have Oasis, Allure, and Harmony all together, 1, 2, and 3, top 3 biggest ships in the world. We've seen this before with the top 2, but I don't think 3 has ever really happened. And that'll of course be tomorrow. We are very early to get in because of that. We're going to be right off the coast of Florida in order to hold this event. What I've been told, on the port side we're going to have the Allure, and then on the other side of the Allure will be the Oasis, while on the starboard side you're actually going to see Fort Lauderdale because we'll be right off the coast, only a couple miles. And of course they'll have the fireboats and all the other things going on. But you'll have to tune in tomorrow just to see how that whole event goes down, and of course I'll have a dedicated video just to all the coverage of that event because it is such a big event in itself. So that about does it for today. Once again, I'm Picone. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the links.